The first star disappeared on a Tuesday night, and almost nobody noticed. That's the truly unsettling part, not the cosmic implications, not the scientific impossibility, not the fact that something ancient and steady had simply vanished from the sky without explanation. No. This, the truly disturbing part was that humanity collectively shrugged and went back to arguing online about streaming prices, politics, celebrity drama, and whatever pineapple people put on pizzas. Meanwhile, my cat sat frozen at the window, staring upward like he'd just witnessed an execution. Not curiosity, not fascination, recognition. The unsettling thing was not that the stars were vanishing. The unsettling thing was that the cat seemed to know they were next. Welcome back to Tavern Reflections. Pull up a chair, pour yourself something warm, and settle in beside the fire for tonight's reflection. Tonight's story drifts somewhere between cosmic horror and something far sadder. The quiet realization that the universe does not always end with explosions. Sometimes it simply grows dimmer, one light at a time. And sometimes the first creatures to notice are not scientists, prophets, or governments, but the quiet little animals sitting beside us while we stare at our phones, pretending reality is stable. Perella DeVille would argue that cats see things humans miss all the time. Though admittedly, Perella also believes that most humans are barely qualified to operate doors, so take that assessment as you will. If you enjoy strange stories, eerie reflections, and darker little wanderings through the edges of reality, more strange doors await at TravisSivart.com. Now then, let's dim the lights. I've lived with cats long enough to understand two important truths. First, cats are either profoundly wise or profoundly stupid. Sometimes both simultaneously. Second, they occasionally stare at things that are absolutely not there, in ways that make you deeply uncomfortable. My cat, Orwell, was an old black cat with silver hairs beginning to creep around his muzzle like ash, gathering after a long fire. He had survived 3 apartments, 2 relationships, 1 minor kitchen fire, and an unfortunate period where I briefly attempted indoor woodworking despite possessing neither skill nor common sense. Orwell was not affectionate in the traditional sense. He didn't cuddle much. He tolerated human contact the way a retired king tolerates peasants carrying groceries through his throne room. And every night, not too long after I got home from my second job, around 10:30, he climbed onto the windowsill beside my chair and stared out at the sky. Always the sky. Not birds, not passing cars, not people walking dogs. The sky. At first, I found it oddly comforting. There's something calming about quiet rituals. The world becomes survivable through repetition. Coffee in the morning, books before bed. Delightful things. And cats staring into the void as though they are personally auditing the universe. Normal things. Then the first star vanished. I noticed it only because Orwell reacted. He'd been sitting in the window, He'd been sitting in the window while I reread one of my old manuscripts involving Perella DeVille breaking into corporate data vault while insulting security systems like an intoxicated aristocrat. Outside, winter pressed softly against the city. Snow drifted lazily through the amber streetlights. It's still in the era where we had amber streetlights instead of these stark white bright ones, the LEDs. The apartment heater hissed like an annoyed serpent because we were far enough north that we had the old kind of heat with radiators you'd bang on to get the bubble out of it. Anyhow, everything felt ordinary. Then Orwell stood abruptly. Not startled, alert. His tail puffed slightly, so it's not bottle brush big, but it's not that slim thing you're used to. And he made a sound I'd never heard before. Not a hiss. Not a growl. A low, uncertain chirp? The kind predators make when something larger enters the forest. I looked up from my manuscript. The cat stared upward. One paw lifted slightly against the glass. And after a brief moment, I felt it too. Not fear exactly, absence. A patch of sky looked wrong. One of the stars near Orion's shoulder was simply gone. Not obscured by clouds. Gone. Not covered by a passing satellite or anything like that. Now, rationally speaking, stars disappear all the time. Supernovas collapse, visibility changes, atmospheric conditions shift. Human memory is unreliable at the best of times. But something about that empty space bothered me immediately. Because the darkness where the star should have been looked intentional. Like a missing tooth or an eye socket. A hole burned through reality itself. Orwell stared at it for nearly an hour. That's when the routines changed. Sorry, I petted my current cats. Over the next several weeks, more stars disappeared. Slowly enough that most people dismissed it. Astronomy forums exploded with arguments almost immediately. Not my usual hangout, but I noticed. I was curious. Some blamed satellite interference, which I already thought of. Others claimed atmospheric distortion. Conspiracy theorists, God love them, naturally concluded billionaires were stealing stars somehow, which honestly feels ambitious even by billionaire standards. News channels covered it for exactly 3 days. I counted them. I watched for them. I tracked it. For 3 days before returning to political outrage and celebrity divorces. Humanity adapts to impossible things remarkably fast. That's both our greatest strength and our most worrying personality flaw. Look at any modern, current environmental issue or crisis. But Orwell noticed every disappearance, always before I did. He'd sit rigid at the window hours beforehand, watching specific sections of sky, waiting. Then at some point during the night, another light vanished. Every time it happened, Orwell physically flinched. The apartment itself began feeling different afterward. Darker, obviously. But not merely darker, quieter. As though the world had lost teeny background frequencies nobody consciously noticed until they stopped. Like if you're on an airplane, that hum of the air handlers and whatnot that stop when it lands. Birdsong became less common, electrical hums sounded flatter, even snowfall seemed muted somehow. One night, while unable to sleep, I wandered. Okay, I went and researched. I wandered online reading increasingly strange astronomy discussions. Just went down that rabbit hole. Entire observatories had quietly stopped publishing certain data, and people were noticing. Amateur astronomers reported gaps appearing in our star charts. A university professor uploaded a 12-minute video explaining why the disappearances violated multiple known laws of physics, and the video vanished 6 hours later. Then it became an urban legend. Made everyone wonder about this situation. Or more comfortable with the situation, because the crazies have been knocked out of the way. Orwell jumped onto the desk beside me. He stared at the monitor, then toward the window, then looked at me. And I suddenly realized something deeply unsettling. The cat was trying to warn me. Not metaphorically, literally. Over the following month, the disappearances accelerated. At first, it was isolated stars, then clusters, then entire sections of sky. The city responded the way cities always respond to existential horror, with mild inconvenience. Restaurants stayed open, traffic continued, people complained about their rent. The apocalypse, if it comes, will probably arrive while someone argues with customer service over a coupon code. Meanwhile, Orwell became increasingly agitated. He stopped sleeping properly, which is crazy for a cat. He stopped playing, stopped lounging in warm sunlight. Instead, he maintained near constant vigil at the window, watching, always watching. And the strange thing was, he seemed to track movement. Not stars disappearing randomly. Movement between the places. One night I woke up around 3 in the morning to find Orwell standing on my chest, staring directly into my face. He made that same low, uncertain chirp that I mentioned earlier, and he looked towards the window. Outside, snow fell silently over empty streets. The cat bolted toward the living room. I unfolded myself from the bed, tossing the blankets back, moving the other second pillow out of the way, sliding my feet into slippers, grabbing my robe because I don't wear enough to bed to wander through the house, and I don't keep the heat that high because I've never had that kind of money. And I followed. And there, hanging above the city skyline, was a section of darkness, moving slowly across the stars. Not an object, an absence. The best comparison I can give to this is imagine watching fish move beneath black water. You don't always see the creature itself. Sometimes you only notice a shape because everything else reacts around it. The stars were vanishing ahead of something, blinking out one by one. Orwell hissed violently. His fur stood on end. And for one impossible moment, I thought I saw size. Perspective broke briefly. The human mind is not designed to comprehend scales beyond instinct. Buildings feel large, mountains enormous, but some things exist beyond emotional measurement. This thing moved through the sky with the slow inevitability of continental drift. And somehow, a damn cat, Orwell, understood it better than I did. The darkness passed. The stars behind it remained gone. The cat stayed awake until dawn. And after that night, I stopped trying to rationalize the situation. Something was happening, something impossible, and the animals knew first. Reports started surfacing online, dogs refusing to go outside at night, bird migrations collapsing into chaos, whales beaching themselves in abnormal numbers, zoo animals becoming violent after sunset. People laughed, of course. Humans laugh at frightening things because the alternative, it involves confronting how fragile our understanding actually is. Poor Orwell, he grew thinner, older, somehow. He wasn't sick, not exactly, just tired, exhausted. Like a soldier forced to stand watch against something he couldn't stop. Just a sense of dreaded inevitability. One evening I sat beside him at the window while snow drifted quietly over the rooftops. Half the familiar constellations were gone now. The sky looked diseased, patchy, wrong. "You know something, don't you?" I whispered. Orwell didn't look at me. He stared upward with ancient predator focus. I suddenly remembered something from one of my own stories. Perella DeVille once described humans as hairless optimists who assume the universe likes them. At the time, I wrote it as a joke. Sitting there beside Orwell, beneath the dying sky, it stopped feeling funny. Because humans do assume the universe is friendly, or at least indifferent. We walk around believing existence owes us continuity. That the stars will remain where they belong because they always have. But what if the cosmos is not stable? What if reality itself is merely a temporary arrangement? What if smaller creatures notice the instability before we do? Orwell began waking me nightly after that. Always minutes before another disappearance. I started timing it. He somehow knew, not predicted, knew. The cat would become alert, tail twitching, eyes fixed upward, then another star would vanish. The internet turned uglier as the sky emptied. Religious groups declared judgment. Governments denied panic while visibly panicking. Astronomers aged 10 years in public interviews. Slumped shoulders, wrinkled clothes, unkempt hair like they just couldn't care anymore. One live stream from a Chilean observatory ended abruptly after someone off camera whispered, "It's moving faster now." And static. Who has static anymore? And nothing. And still, people went to work, paid bills, bought groceries, watched reality television, which I don't get on the best of days, let alone when the universe is collapsing upon itself or being eaten. Civilization continued sleepwalking beneath a dying universe because routines are how we humans resist madness. One night, the power failed across the city. Not gradually, instantly. My apartment fell into complete darkness. Outside, no streetlights remained, no headlights, no little neon signs, nothing. Only the sky, or what remained of it. Orwell reacted immediately. He leapt from the couch and positioned himself between me and the window, growling, low, shoulders raised, head lowered, actually growling. I'd never heard him growl before. Then the darkness overhead shifted. I don't fully possess language for what happened next. Something crossed the sky. Not through the sky, through the stars themselves. Imagine watching an enormous creature swim beneath thin ice. Ice you're standing on. Ice that could crack any second between you and it. You don't know how deep it is, you just know you can see it between you and everything else. And you see the shape through disturbance, not form. The stars vanished around it in an expanding silence. Because the whole city was at a standstill. There was no noise. And for one impossible second, I became aware of scale. That thing above us, Orwell and I, was not hostile in any emotional sense, not angry, not malicious. No more than a baleen whale scooping up plankton. It simply existed at a level so vast that human life meant less to it than dust means to weather. Orwell screamed. Not meowed. Screamed. That cat, with that one single noise. Anyhow, every remaining star above the city blinked out simultaneously. Darkness consumed everything. Absolute darkness. The kind that feels heavy. The kind ancient humans probably mistook for gods. I don't remember falling backward. I only remember Orwell pressed tightly against my chest, trembling violently, while the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, far away, one star returned, a teeny point of light, then another and another. Not restored, wrong positions. I've had a fascination with astronomy since I took a class in our little high school that had its own overhead dome that it could project the stars on. I knew the patterns well enough, not explicitly, but well enough to know they were different. They were in wrong positions, wrong patterns. as though the sky itself had been rearranged. Orwell, on my chest, relaxed slightly, but only slightly. He never recovered fully after that night. Neither did I. The stars continued disappearing over the following months, though slower now, as if whatever moved beyond them had passed deeper into the dark, into the depths beyond this galaxy. People adjusted eventually, humans always do. New constellations received names. Scientists developed explanations. Social media transformed cosmic annihilation into arguments and memes within approximately 11 minutes because, of course, it did. But Orwell stopped watching the sky. That was the part that hurt. The windowsill remained empty at night. The old cat spent evenings sleeping beside my chair instead, exhausted beyond age. It hurt my heart. He was broken isn't the right word, but like a guard animal finally realizing the danger had already passed beyond warning. Inevitable. Giving up. One rainy evening, months later, I found him lying quietly beside the window, breathing slowly, weakly. I sat beside him for hours. Outside, only half the familiar stars remained. "You did your job," I whispered. The old cat purred once, softly, and he rested, his head against my arm. And sometime near dawn, he was gone. That apartment felt possibly large afterward. Silence changes shape after loss. You start noticing all the teeny sounds companionship used to absorb. No pause on the formica floors, no irritated chirping near food bowls, no judgmental stares while opening canned tuna. Just emptiness. I buried Orwell, beside a tree outside my father's old property where he used to hunt insects badly, but with great confidence. That night, for the first time in months, the sky remained stable. No stars vanished, no darkness moved. Nothing happened at all. And somehow, that felt worse. Because it meant the watching had ended. The reason stories like this linger in the human brain is because they touch two ancient fears simultaneously. The first is cosmic insignificance, the realization that the universe may be vast beyond understanding and entirely unconcerned with us. But the second fear is smaller, it's sadder. It's the fear that Quieter creatures sometimes notice danger before we do. Animals sense storms, earthquakes, pressure changes, predators, cancer, death. Humans like to believe intelligence places us at the center of awareness. We've always thought ourselves to be the center of the universe, small or large. Even now, we're the most important person in the world in our own head. But awareness and attention are not the same thing. Modern people spend so much time staring at screens, schedules, manufactured noise, that we barely notice reality anymore. Meanwhile, animals continue observing the world directly, listening, watching, responding. Perhaps the universe has always whispered its warnings through smaller, quieter lives. And maybe that's why stories about animals unsettle us emotionally. Because when the dog growls at an empty hallway, when the birds outside suddenly stop singing, when a cat stares into darkness with absolute certainty, some ancient part of the human mind remembers we're not actually the best observers in creation. We are simply the loudest. And perhaps the saddest part of all this is that by the end of the story, the narrator fears losing the cat more than losing the stars. Which honestly feels very human. Civilizations collapse, universes shift, the heavens dim themselves, and still the losses that break us most are usually small enough to curl up beside us on the couch. Thank you for spending part of your evening here in the tavern. If you enjoy strange stories, eerie reflections, little cosmic horrors, and darker wanderings through the edges of reality, more strange doors await at TravisSivart.com. Perella would probably scoff at tonight's yarn, tell me to mind my own business and stop frightening the kittens. She may not be entirely wrong, but there's a reason I live in so many worlds and move freely between one and the other. Until next time, mind the shadows and pay attention to the quiet things watching the dark.